He's in my seat. Not a request, but an edict. The blonde iceberg, all pearls and privilege, loomed over Marcus, daring him to disagree. He gripped his boarding pass, the cheap paper, a stark contrast to her designer handbag. 8 years old, black, and a billionaire's son. A trifecta she clearly didn't account for. She doesn't see him. Not really. Not yet. But his thumb hovers over a single contact on his phone. One call would ground this whole flight. It's tempting. But a quiet memory of his father's voice, the one about real power, stops him. And that's her mistake. They have no idea how his quiet kindness will change everything. 8-year-old Marcus Solomon watches in stunned silence as his carefully arranged Star Wars backpack is lifted from the premium leather seat and unceremoniously dropped beside the aisle. Around them, the first-class cabin of Flight 1372 from Atlanta to San Francisco buzzes with pre-departure activity. But for Marcus, time slows to a crawl. The flight attendant glances between the boy's boarding pass and the blonde woman's determined face, hesitation evident in her pursed lips. "Ma'am, I understand your concern, but the system shows this seat is assigned to this young passenger." The woman, expensive pearls catching the cabin light, tailored blazer suggesting corporate success, leans closer. "Look at him. He's clearly lost. There must be some mistake. My son needs this window seat because of his anxiety." Marcus feels his throat tight and words trapped as effectively as he feels trapped in this humiliating moment. His father, Solomon, is still in the terminal finishing an emergency call with the governor. No one else knows who they are. Not yet. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to our channel and comment where you're watching from. Now back to our story. The flight attendant's uncertain gaze darts between them. "Let me see if we can sort this out," she says, reaching for Marcus's boarding pass. The woman's son, roughly 13, with the same blonde hair, already slides into the disputed seat, sprawling with entitlement. Marcus feels something unfamiliar building in his chest, not just embarrassment, but a slow, burning anger. He wants to speak up to explain that his father owns more aircraft than this entire airline operates, that the Solomon name adorns buildings in 12 major cities, but the words won't come. Instead, he reaches for his phone, the latest model custom designed with security features most government officials don't possess. His thumb hovers over his father's contact. One call, that's all it would take. But something stops him, a memory of his father's words just that morning. True power isn't about forcing people to see you. It's about choosing when to be seen. The flight attendant turns away, murmuring into her handset. The blonde woman smiles triumphantly at her son, who has already pushed Marcus's backpack further away with his foot. The other first-class passengers pretend not to notice, bearing their awareness in magazines and pre-flight cocktails. Marcus stands alone in the aisle, 8 years old, and already intimately familiar with how invisible he can be made to feel despite his family's wealth. But to understand how we got here, how an 8-year-old billionaire's son found himself displaced and diminished in first class, and why what happens next will change everyone on this flight forever, we need to go back. Back to breakfast this morning in the Solomon penthouse, where Marcus's father, Elijah Solomon, self-made tech billionaire and the most influential black venture capitalist in America, was teaching his son about power, legacy, and the world that would never quite see him clearly. Dawn breaks over Atlanta, golden light spilling through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Solomon penthouse. The sprawling residence occupies the top 3 floors of the gleaming Solomon Tower, its sleek, modern interior warmed by African art and family photographs. In the main kitchen, one of 3 in the residence, Elijah Solomon stands at the marble island, making breakfast himself despite the household staff waiting discreetly in the wings. At 52, Elijah moves with the deliberate precision of a man accustomed to creating exactly what he wants in the world. His close-cropped, salt and pepper hair and trim beard frame, intense eyes that have stared down corporate boards and government officials alike. He wears a simple black t-shirt that probably costs more than most people's entire wardrobes, though nothing about him broadcasts his wealth. He doesn't need to. Power, real power, speaks in whispers. "Pancakes or waffles, Marcus?" he asks, glancing toward his son, who sits at the breakfast bar, small legs dangling from the high stool. Marcus wears pressed khakis and a button-down shirt already dressed for their flight. "Waffles, please," Marcus replies, eyes never leaving the advanced tablet where he's reviewing his latest coding project. At 8, Marcus Solomon displays the focused intensity of his father, a quality that both impresses and occasionally worries Elijah. Childhood should have more space for play, but Marcus, having lost his mother to cancer 3 years ago, seems determined to grow up as quickly as possible. Elijah pours batter into the waffle iron, the familiar hiss and aroma filling the kitchen. "Tell me about your project," he says, leaning against the counter. Marcus looks up, his expression brightening. "I'm building an app that helps kids find other kids who like the same books. It uses an algorithm to match reading preferences and suggests meeting at local libraries." His voice quickens with enthusiasm. Patterson says, "Lots of kids in my class feel lonely during reading time, so I thought this could help." Elijah feels the familiar swell of pride mixed with something heavier. The weight of protecting this brilliant, compassionate boy in a world that won't always see his brilliance first. That's excellent thinking, Marcus. Technology should connect, not isolate. You're seeing a need and creating a solution. The waffle iron beeps, and Elijah serves his son breakfast, adding fresh berries from their rooftop garden. As Marcus drizzles maple syrup carefully over his waffle, Elijah's phone buzzes. He glances at it, frowning slightly. "Dad." Marcus's perceptive eyes miss nothing. "Is it about the investment meeting in San Francisco?" Elijah smiles, tucking his phone away. "Nothing for you to worry about. The governor wants to discuss the new tech education initiative before we leave." He sits beside his son, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "What's our agreement about this trip?" Marcus straightens, reciting, "This is a business trip, not vacation. I'll observe, learn, and only speak when appropriate. I represent the Solomon name." "And what does the Solomon name mean?" Elijah asks, their morning ritual continuing. "Excellence, integrity, purpose," Marcus recites, then adds with a small smile. "And really cool robots," Elijah laughs, the sound warming the modern kitchen. "The robots are just tools, son. It's the minds behind them that matter." His expression grows more serious. "Marcus, today you'll be sitting in meetings with people who run some of the biggest companies in the world. Some of them won't expect to see an 8-year-old boy there. Some might not think you belong." Marcus nods, his young face solemn, like at school sometimes. Elijah feels the familiar twinge, the memory of Marcus coming home last year, confused about why a classmate's birthday party invitation had been withdrawn after the parents realized who Marcus's father was. Too much security, they'd claimed, though Elijah's team could be invisible when needed. The real reason hung unspoken. "People make judgments based on what they think they see," Elijah says carefully. "Our job isn't to correct every misconception. Sometimes there's power in being underestimated." "Is that why you don't wear fancy watches like Mr. Daniels?" Marcus asks, referring to Elijah's chief financial officer, who sports a different luxury timepiece every week. Elijah smiles. "Harrison needs his watches." "I don't," he taps his temple. "True power isn't about what you display, it's about what you know, who you know, and when to reveal either." Marcus considers this, cutting his waffle into precise squares. "Is that why we're flying commercial today, even though we have planes?" Very observant, Elijah nods approvingly. "What would happen if we arrived in our jet?" Marcus thinks everyone would know we're coming. It would be in the business news. Exactly. And sometimes it's better to move quietly. Today we're just 2 passengers. Nothing special. Marcus smiles mischievously. "Except we're in first class." Elijah laughs. "Well, I didn't say we needed to be uncomfortable to be discreet." Their breakfast continues, the conversation shifting to Marcus's school projects and the San Francisco meetings. Elijah's assistant, Ayanna Williams, arrives as they finish, her efficient presence immediately organizing the day ahead. At 35, Ayanna has worked with Elijah for a decade, rising from executive assistant to become chief of staff for all Solomon Enterprises. Her twisted locks are pulled back in a professional style, her charcoal suit impeccably tailored. "The governor's calling in 5, she informs Elijah, handing him a tablet with briefing notes. "Security has cleared the route to the airport, and I've confirmed your meetings in San Francisco." She turns to Marcus with a warm smile. And for you, young sir, I've uploaded those books you wanted and refreshed your security protocols. Thanks, Miss Williams, Marcus replies, his formality making her chuckle. Your father has the governor and 2 senators calling this morning. I have a conference call with Tokyo. Who are you speaking with today? She teases. Just my coding teacher, but she's very important. Marcus answers seriously. Anna nods with equal seriousness. Indeed she is. Future builders deserve our full attention. Elijah's phone buzzes again. That's the governor. Marcus, finish breakfast and make sure your bag is ready. Miss Williams will help you, and I'll meet you downstairs in 20 minutes. As Elijah leaves to take the call in his office, Anna sits at the breakfast bar. How are those waffles? Good, Marcus says, then hesitates. M. Williams, can I ask you something? Of course. Did my dad always have money? The question surprises her. No, Marcus. Your father grew up very differently than you. So how did people treat him then compared to now? Anna studies the perceptive child before her. That's a complicated question. People treated him differently. Yes. Sometimes they didn't see his potential. Sometimes they tried to put limits on him because of how he looked or where he came from. And now everyone wants to talk to him? Marcus observes. Now they see what was always there. Jana corrects gently. Your father was always brilliant, always determined. The difference is in their perception, not in who he is. Marcus absorbs this, his young mind processing implications beyond his years. I think that's why he doesn't like showing off. Anna smiles. Your father believes respect should be earned through actions, not purchased through displays. She glances at her watch. Now let's get your things together. You have a plane to catch. 30 minutes later, the Solomon security team, discreet professionals in unmarked vehicles, escorts them toward the airport. In the back of the luxury SUV, Elijah reviews documents while Marcus gazes out the window at the Atlanta skyline, buildings giving way to highways, and eventually the sprawling expanse of Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. Remember, Elijah says as they approach the terminal, today we're just regular travelers. Regular first-class travelers, Marcus corrects with a small smile. Even billionaires don't fly coach, son. Elijah winks, tucking away his documents. The driver pulls up to the departures level, where a plainclothed airline representative waits to escort them through a private security entrance. A courtesy extended to certain high-profile travelers, though nothing about their arrival suggests particular importance. As they walk through the terminal, Elijah's phone rings again. It's the governor calling back, he tells Marcus with a frown. I need to take this. It's about the Education Initiative funding. He looks at his watch. We have time before boarding. Can you wait here for a few minutes? Stay in this exact spot where I can see you. Marcus nods, used to his father's important calls. The terminal bustles around them, travelers rushing to gates, announcements echoing overhead. Elijah steps just a few feet away, phone to his ear, his back to the window, but positioned to keep Marcus in his peripheral vision. Marcus stands patiently, observing the flow of humanity around him. Business people hurrying with briefcases, families coring excited children, elderly couples moving carefully through the chaos. No one gives him a second glance, just a well-dressed boy waiting quietly, invisible in plain sight, just as his father had described. Nearby, a harried mother struggles with a toddler and several bags. The child drops a stuffed elephant, wailing as it lands near Marcus's feet. Without hesitation, Marcus picks it up, approaches cautiously, and offers it to the distressed toddler. Thank you, the mother says with genuine gratitude, her eyes briefly meeting his before returning to her juggling act. Marcus nods politely and returns to his spot. A small interaction quickly forgotten by everyone except Marcus, who tucks away the moment as evidence. People see kindness even when they don't see you. Elijah's call continues longer than expected, his expression growing more concerned. Marcus checks the time on his phone. Boarding will begin soon. His father glances over, holding up one finger to indicate just one more minute. Marcus nods, understanding. An announcement echoes overhead. First class and priority passengers for Flight 1372 to San Francisco may now begin boarding at Gate A22. Marcus looks anxiously at his father, who's now speaking intensely into the phone. Elijah makes eye contact, points to the boarding pass in Marcus's hand, then to the gate visible down the corridor. He mouths clearly, "Go get our seats. I'll be right there." Marcus hesitates, then nods confidently. He's flown dozens of times, knows the protocols. His father trusts him with his small independence, and he won't disappoint. Squaring his small shoulders, Star Wars backpack secure, Marcus walks toward the gate, boarding pass and ID ready. At the gate, the attendant barely glances at him. Another example of the strange paradox of his existence. His ID clearly shows the Solomon name, a name that opens doors throughout the country. Yet the attendant simply scans his boarding pass, perhaps assuming he's traveling with the adults behind him. "Enjoy your flight, Mr. Solomon," she says automatically, already looking past him to the next passenger. Marcus enters the jet bridge, the familiar excitement of flying, mingling with pride at handling this small task independently. He boards the aircraft, greeted with the practiced smile of flight attendants who see him as just another first-class passenger's child, not as the heir to the Solomon Empire. "Welcome aboard," says a flight attendant named Diane, according to her name tag. "Are you traveling alone today?" "No, ma'am," Marcus answers politely. "My father's coming. He's finishing an important call." Something in his composed delivery makes Diane look more closely at him. "Well, you can get settled in your seat. What number do you have there?" Marcus checks his boarding pass. 2A window seat. Perfect. Right this way." She gestures toward the front of the first-class cabin. Marcus makes his way to his assigned seat, places his backpack neatly on the premium leather seat, and begins organizing his things, just as his father taught him. Tablet accessible but secure phone charge book for takeoff when electronics must be stowed. He settles into the window seat, small legs barely reaching the floor, and watches the continuing boarding process. The first-class cabin fills gradually, executives tapping on phones until the last possible moment. A recognizable actress wearing sunglasses indoors. An elderly gentleman who smiles kindly at Marcus. No one questions his presence. In first class, privacy is an unspoken rule. Then she arrives, the blonde woman in the tailored blazer, pearl necklace catching the light designer handbag hanging from one arm, a teenage boy trailing behind her. She stops at Marcus's row, checking her boarding pass with a frown. "Excuse me," she says, not to Marcus, but to Diane passing in the aisle. "There seems to be some confusion. We're supposed to have 2A and 2B, but theirs." She gestures vaguely toward Marcus without actually looking at him. "Someone in our seat, and now we return to where our story began." Marcus standing in the aisle, his seat taken, his belongings displaced, his voice silenced by surprise, and the lifetime of careful lessons about when to be seen and when to be invisible. The flight attendant's uncertain expression shifts to decision as she taps her tablet. "Ma'am, I've checked the system again. This seat is definitely assigned to." She glances at the boarding pass in her hand, her eyes widening slightly as she registers the name to Mr. Solomon. The woman's perfectly lined lips pursed with irritation. There must be some mistake. "Look, my son has severe anxiety and needs a window seat. We specifically booked these seats months ago." She lowers her voice, though not enough. Surely there's been some mix-up with the child's ticket. Marcus feels heat rising to his face. He knows what she's implying, that he doesn't belong here, that some mistake has been made. The teenage boy has fully claimed the window seat now, AirPods and deliberately oblivious to the tension. "I understand your concern," Diane replies professionally, "but our system shows. Is there a problem here?" A new voice enters the conversation. Male authoritative belonging to the flight's captain who has emerged from the cockpit for pre-flight checks. The woman turns to him with visible relief. "Yes, there seems to be confusion about our seats. My son and I booked 2A and 2B, but there's been some mix-up." The captain, an older white man with silver hair visible beneath his cap, surveys the situation. His gaze falls on Marcus standing silently in the aisle, then shifts to the boy in the disputed seat. "Let me see the boarding passes," he says, extending his hand. Marcus offers his pass without hesitation. The woman fumbles in her purse before producing 2 boarding passes. The captain examines them carefully. "Ma'am, your passes show seats 4A and 4B, not 2A and 2B. The woman's confidence falters momentarily before she recovers. That can't be right. We specifically requested front row window seats because of my son's anxiety. There must have been a system error. Marcus stands perfectly still, his father's teachings echoing. Sometimes there's power in being underestimated. Sometimes it's better to observe than engage. The captain looks again at Marcus's boarding pass, his eyes lingering on the name. A subtle shift occurs in his demeanor, a straightening of his already straight posture, a new alertness in his eyes. "Young man," he addresses Marcus directly, "is someone traveling with you today?" Before Marcus can answer, a new presence fills the space behind him. Elijah Solomon stands in the aisle, his quiet authority immediately changing the dynamic of the confrontation. He places a protective hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Is there a problem with my son's seat?" Elijah asks, his voice calm, but carrying an unmistakable edge. The captain's expression confirms what Marcus already suspected. He recognizes Elijah Solomon. Few in the business world wouldn't. "Mr. Solomon," the captain says with newfound difference. "No problem at all. There seems to be some confusion about seating assignments." The blonde woman turns, her eyes widening as she takes in Elijah's presence. Recognition dawns slowly, followed by visible discomfort. "My son's seat." Elijah continues evenly, which appears to have been reassigned without authorization. The teenage boy, sensing the shift in atmosphere, finally removes one AirPod and looks up. The woman places a hand on her son's shoulder, suddenly eager to resolve the situation. "Tyler, honey, there's been a mistake with our seats. We need to move to row 4. The boy, Tyler, scowls. "But you said now, Tyler." She cuts him off, her composure cracking. Elijah's expression remains impassive, but his eyes convey volumes as they meet the woman's gaze. He doesn't need to speak further. His presence alone has corrected the imbalance. As Tyler reluctantly gathers his things, Elijah turns to Marcus. "Everything all right, son?" Marcus nods, relieved, but also processing this swift transformation. How quickly visibility can change when context shifts. The woman and her son retreat to their assigned seats in row 4, her earlier confidence deflated. Diane, the flight attendant, approaches with visible contrition. "Mr. Solomon, please accept our apologies for the confusion. Can I offer you and your son complimentary beverages once we're airborne?" Elijah nods politely but dismissively as he and Marcus settle into their correct seats. The boarding process continues around them, but the energy has shifted. Now passengers steal glances, whispers circulate. The invisible has become visible. "Dad," Marcus whispers once they're seated, "how did the captain know who you were?" Elijah smiles slightly. "Our name was on your boarding pass and certain names trigger recognition, but the flight attendant saw my pass earlier and didn't react." "Different people notice different things," Elijah replies. "A captain is trained to be more observant." He pauses, studying his son. "How did it feel standing there while they questioned your right to be in this seat?" Marcus considers this carefully. "Small," he finally says, "but also I remembered what you said about choosing when to be seen." Pride flickers across Elijah's face. "And you chose patience, wisdom beyond your years." He glances toward row 4, where the woman studiously avoids looking their direction. "There are different kinds of power, Marcus. What just happened was the most obvious kind. Recognition, reputation. But don't underestimate the power of observation. While you stood there, what did you learn?" Marcus thinks that people make assumptions that the woman lied about her boarding pass, that she thought she could just take what wasn't hers. And why do you think she believed that would work? The question hangs between them as the final boarding announcements are made. Marcus looks out the window at the tarmac, considering his answer carefully. "Because," he says slowly, "she's used to people believing her instead of believing." He trails off. "Instead of believing an 8-year-old black boy," Elijah finishes quietly. No matter how well-dressed or well-spoken that boy might be, he adjusts Marcus' seatbelt with paternal care. "The world will present you with these moments, son. Your response to them will define your character more than any wealth or achievement ever could." The aircraft begins pushing back from the gate, the familiar safety demonstration beginning. But the morning's events have already provided Marcus with a different kind of safety briefing. One about navigating spaces where assumptions and biases operate as powerfully as any written rule. As the plane taxis toward the runway, Neither Solomon notices the blonde woman from row 4 making her way to the lavatory, pausing briefly beside the flight attendant station where Deanne and another attendant converse in hushed tones. "Excuse me," the woman interjects, her voice honey now. Embarrassment apparently forgot. "I couldn't help overhearing. Is that really Elijah Solomon and his son?" Diane's professional mask reveals nothing. "Ma'am, we respect all our passengers' privacy." The woman leans closer. "Of course, I completely understand. It's just my husband's firm has been trying to get a meeting with Solomon Ventures for months. This is such a coincidence." The flight attendants exchange glances but remain non-committal. The woman retreats to her seat, phone already in hand, fingers typing rapidly. The aircraft thunders down the runway, lifting into the clear Atlanta sky. In row 2, Elijah reviews documents on his tablet while Marcus gazes out the window, watching his father's city shrink beneath them. In row 4, the woman named Karen Miller, though neither Solomon knows her name yet, sends a rapid series of texts before the altitude requires electronic devices to be switched off. To her husband, "You won't believe who's on my flight." Elijah Solomon. The Elijah Solomon with his kid trying to think how to approach him. To her sister, "Major awkward moment at boarding. Tell you later, but might have accidentally crossed a billionaire." Fixing it now to her business partner. Potential huge opportunity. Solomon on my flight working on an intro. None of them, not the Solomons, not Karen Miller, not the flight crew, yet realize how the next few hours at 35,000 FT will transform their lives, challenge their assumptions, and ultimately ground an aircraft carrying 183 souls through the most unexpected of circumstances. The plane levels at cruising altitude, the seatbelt sign dims, and the real journey begins. 30 minutes into the flight, the atmosphere in first class has settled into the routine hum of travel. Flight attendants serve drinks, passengers tap on laptops or don noise-canceling headphones, creating bubbles of privacy within the shared space. In 2A and 2B, Elijah reviews briefing documents for his San Francisco meetings while Marcus sketches interface designs for his reading app on his tablet. In row 4, Karen Miller's attention remains fixed on the back of Elijah Solomon's head, her mind churning through potential approaches. Her son Tyler, oblivious to his mother's networking ambitions, plays a game on his phone, his earlier irritation at the seat change forgotten in teenage digital absorption. The smooth calm of flight is interrupted when the captain's voice crackles over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're expecting some turbulence as we cross over the Mississippi. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." As if on cue, the aircraft gives a slight shudder. Passengers comply with the announcement. Flight attendants secure service items, and the momentary disruption seems routine, except to Marcus, whose observant eyes catch something others miss. "Dad," he whispers. The flight attendants look worried. Elijah glances up, noting the tense exchange between Diane and the other attendant at the forward galley. Their professional composure remains intact, but their body language communicates concern. "Good observation," Elijah murmurs. "Always watch the crew. They know the difference between routine and unusual." The turbulence increases, the plane bucking slightly. Most passengers grip armrests. A few nervous glances exchange across the cabin. Marcus watches as Diane picks up the cabin phone, her expression carefully neutral as she listens to someone, presumably the cockpit. Elijah's phone buzzes with an incoming text. He glances at it, frowning. "From Ayanna," he tells Marcus. "There's a situation developing at our San Francisco office. The prototype demonstration is experiencing technical issues." Marcus's eyes widen with concern. The prototype, a revolutionary educational technology designed to make advanced learning accessible in underserved communities, represents years of development and millions in investment. Its demonstration for potential educational partners tomorrow is crucial to the Solomon Foundation's mission. "Will it be fixed in time?" Marcus asks. "Is assembling the engineering team now?" Elijah replies, already typing a response. "If anyone can solve it, they can." The plane lurches again, more violently this time. A few gasps emerge from the main cabin. In the galley, Diane speaks urgently into the phone, her eyes occasionally darting toward the Solomon seats with an unreadable expression. "Dad," Marcus says hesitantly, "I think something's wrong, not just turbulence." Before Elijah can respond, the captain's voice returns, strained but professional. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a minor mechanical issue that requires us to divert to Memphis International Airport as a precautionary measure. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. There is no cause for alarm. A ripple of murmurs sweeps through the cabin. Elijah's expression darkens as he checks his watch, mentally calculating delays, missed connections, rescheduled meetings. The San Francisco situation already demands attention. This complication compounds the pressure. Diane approaches their row, leaning down to speak quietly. Mr. Solomon, the captain would like a word with you when it's safe to move about the cabin. Elijah's eyebrows rise slightly, an unusual request, but he nods. Of course. Marcus watches this exchange with growing curiosity. The aircraft begins a gentle bank to the left, changing course for Memphis. Passengers shift nervously, some tapping urgently on phones to inform connections about delays, others whispering theories about the mechanical issue. From row 4, Karen Miller watches the flight attendant's interaction with Elijah with intense interest. The diversion presents both problem and opportunity for her, a delay disrupting her own schedule, but perhaps a chance to engineer the business introduction she craves in the confined space of an airport. When the turbulence subsides enough for movement, Diane returns to escort Elijah toward the cockpit. He turns to Marcus first. Stay here. I won't be long. Marcus nods, used to his father being pulled into unexpected consultations. As Elijah follows Diane forward, several passengers watch with curiosity. A civilian summoned to the cockpit is unusual enough to notice. In Elijah's absence, Marcus continues working on his app design, but his attention repeatedly drifts to the interactions around him. 2 rows back, Karen Miller has abandoned all pretense of not watching her neck craned to track Elijah's movements. When she notices Marcus looking her way, she offers a smile too bright to be sincere. Your father is Elijah Solomon, isn't he? She asks, leaning slightly into the aisle. I thought I recognized him. My husband's firm has been following his work for years. Marcus remembers his father's teachings about such moments. He offers a polite but non-committal nod, neither confirming nor denying. Such a brilliant investor, she continues, undeterred by his minimal response. The way he transformed that failing tech company, Nexus Systems, wasn't it simply visionary? She pauses, clearly expecting Marcus to engage. My dad says, good investments are about seeing potential others miss. Marcus finally offers the response measured and mature beyond his years. Karen's smile widens. So articulate, you must be very proud of your father. I'm Karen Miller, by the way. My husband is Jeffrey Miller, managing partner at Westlake Capital. The name carries weight in financial circles. Not Solomon-level influence, but significant. Marcus recognizes it from conversations overheard in his father's home office. Nice to meet you, Miss Miller, he replies simply. Karen seizes this small opening. Perhaps when we land, given this unfortunate delay, you and your father might join us for lunch. I'm sure Jeffrey would love to connect once he hears about this coincidence. Before Marcus can respond, the cockpit door opens and Elijah emerges, his expression grave as he confers with the captain in the threshold. Their conversation, though inaudible to the cabin, appears intense. The captain nods several times, looking relieved as Elijah speaks. Diane approaches Karen, professional but firm. Ms. Miller, please return to your seat and fasten your seatbelt. We're beginning our descent into Memphis. Karen retreats, but her eyes remain fixed on Elijah as he returns to his seat beside Marcus. Other passengers watch too, sensing something beyond routine in this interaction between captain and passenger. Dad. Marcus questions quietly as Elijah buckles in beside him. Why did the captain want to talk to you? Elijah's voice lowers for Marcus's ears only. There's been a security concern. Nothing to worry about, but we're landing to address it. What kind of security concern? Elijah hesitates, weighing his son's maturity against the sensitivity of the situation. Someone on board has been making concerning communications about our presence on this flight. The captain was alerted by ground security. Marcus's eyes widen. About us? Why? Not everyone sees opportunity the same way, Elijah says carefully. Some see it as something to create. Others see it as something to extract from others. The aircraft begins its descent, the Memphis skyline becoming visible through patchy clouds. Elijah continues quietly. The airline security protocol flagged messages being sent from the plane that mentioned my name alongside concerning language. The captain wanted to verify the situation before taking action. What action? Marcus asks, his young mind racing with possibilities. Law enforcement will meet the plane. Elijah explains, standard procedure for certain types of security concerns. Marcus processes this information, his gaze unconsciously drifting toward row 4, where Karen Miller now appears engrossed in a magazine. Her earlier networking eagerness replaced by studied nonchalance. Ms. Miller was asking about you, Marcus informs his father. She wanted us to have lunch with her husband when we land. A knowing expression crosses Elijah's face. Did she now? He doesn't look back toward row 4. Doesn't need to. And what did you tell her? Just that you say good investments are about seeing potential others miss, Marcus recites. Elijah smiles with quiet pride. Perfect response. Polite but non-committal. His expression grows more serious. Marcus, when we land, things might happen quickly. Stay close to me. Don't engage with anyone unless I indicate it's okay. The plane continues its descent, the cabin quiet with the collective tension of unexpected diversion. Through the window, Memphis International Airport comes into view, an unplanned detour reshaping everyone's day. What no one yet realizes is how this diversion will expose layers of assumption, ambition, and prejudice among the passengers of Flight 11372. As the wheels touch down on Tennessee tarmac, the real turbulence is only beginning. The aircraft touches down on the Memphis runway with a firm jolt, brakes engaging as it decelerates. An automated announcement welcomes passengers to Memphis International Airport, apologizing for the unscheduled diversion and promising updates as soon as possible. Captain Robert Thornton's voice follows, his practiced calm carrying a subtle edge. Ladies and gentlemen, we've landed safely in Memphis. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened until we reach our designated gate. We appreciate your cooperation and patience. Marcus notices what goes unsaid. No mention of when they might continue to San Francisco, no estimated delay time. Through the window, he sees emergency vehicles positioned along the taxiway, their presence excessive for a mere mechanical issue. Dad, he whispers, those are police cars. Elijah nods almost imperceptibly. Remember what I said? Stay close. Stay calm. The plane taxis slowly toward the terminal, passengers growing increasingly restless with uncertainty. Phones emerge despite the standing prohibition. People texting frantically about delays and missed connections. In row 4, Karen Miller's composure has visibly fractured, her perfectly manicured fingers drumming anxiously on her armrest as she whispers urgently to her son. When the aircraft finally stops at the gate, the captain makes another announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be deplaning shortly. Due to our unscheduled arrival, we ask for your patience as ground staff prepares for our disembarkation. Please remain seated until further instructions. Minutes tick by in tense silence. Flight attendants confer in hushed tones at the galley. Finally, the aircraft door opens. But instead of the jetway greeting, uniformed police officers board the plane, followed by airport security personnel. Their purposeful entrance sends a ripple of alarm through the cabin. The lead officer, a stocky man with a Memphis PD badge visible on his chest, confers briefly with the captain and flight attendants who gestured discreetly toward row 4. Marcus watches with wide eyes as realization dawn. Ms. Miller is a security concern. Ms. Karen Miller. The officer approaches row 4, his voice carrying in the hushed cabin. Karen straightens, color draining from her face. Yes. Is there a problem, officer? Ma'am, we need you to gather your belongings and come with us, please. Tyler looks up from his phone, confusion replacing his teenage indifference. Mom, what's happening? Karen's voice rises with indignation. This is absurd. I've done nothing wrong. I demand to know what this is about. The officer remains professionally detached. Ma'am, we can discuss this in private once we're off the aircraft. Please cooperate so other passengers can continue their journey. All pretense of privacy dissolves as the first-class cabin watches this drama unfold. Karen stands gathering her belongings with shaking hands, her earlier confidence replaced by visible fear. This is some mistake. I'm an executive with Miller Partners, my husband. Mom, Tyler interrupts, adolescent bravado crumbling into childish uncertainty. It's fine, honey, she assures him with forced calm. Just a misunderstanding. Come on. As officers escort them toward the exit, Karen's gaze locks briefly with Elijah's. The look that passes between them carries volumes. Her realization, his impassivity. She knows now. Somehow she knows. Once the Millers are escorted off, the captain addresses the remaining passengers. Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the disruption. We're working to get you to San Francisco as quickly as possible. For now, please disembark and proceed to gate B14, where our agents will provide further information. The deplaning process begins, conversations buzzing with speculation. Marcus and Elijah wait until most passengers have exited before standing. As they gather their belongings, Captain Thornton emerges from the cockpit, approaching them directly. Mr. Solomon, he says quietly, a port security would appreciate a brief statement from you before you continue your journey. Elijah nods. Of course, Captain, and thank you for your handling of the situation. The captain's weathered face shows relief. Airline protocols are clear about security threats, sir. I'm just sorry your trip was disrupted. As they follow the captain through the emptied aircraft, Marcus tugs gently at his father's sleeve. Dad, what exactly did Miss Miller do? Elijah considers his response carefully, aware of the teaching moment this presents. She sent messages that were flagged by airline security algorithms. Messages that apparently referenced using our presence on this flight for financial gain alongside language that could be interpreted as threatening. She wanted to make money from meeting you, Marcus asks, trying to understand. In a manner of speaking, Elijah confirms as they step into the jetway. She was attempting to manipulate a chance encounter into financial opportunity, but her methods crossed a line. At the gate, an airport security officer waits to escort them to a private room where two more officers and an airline representative sit at a conference table. The room is bland and bureaucratic, but the tension within it is palpable. Mr. Solomon, the airline representative begins. I'm Thomas Grayson, head of security for Atlantic Airways. First, please accept our sincere apologies for this disruption to your journey. Elijah nods acknowledgement, but says nothing. A negotiation tactic Marcus has observed countless times. Let the other party reveal their position first. We'd like to explain the situation, Grayson continues. Our security systems flag several messages sent from a passenger's device that raise concerns. He slides a tablet across the table displaying screenshots of text messages. Marcus, seated beside his father, can see the messages clearly. He's right here on the plane. This is our chance. I'll make sure he talks to you, even if I have to corner him at baggage claim. Kid looks soft. Could use that angle if needed. Worth at least $1 million to your firm. If we can get him to agree to a meeting, I'll make it happen one way or another. These are Ms. Miller's messages, Elijah asks, his voice level despite the implications. Grayson nods. Yes, sir. Our systems flag the language as potentially coercive, especially given your public profile. When her messages referenced your son, the threat assessment escalated. Marcus feels a chill despite the room's warmth. The woman who'd taken his seat, who'd smiled and talked about his father's investments, had been calculating how to use him as leverage. What happens to her now, Elijah asks. That largely depends on whether you wish to press charges, one of the security officers explains. At minimum, she's facing potential federal charges for making statements that interfered with flight crew duties. If you consider her messages threatening or harassing, additional charges could apply. A heavy silence fills the room as Elijah considers this. Marcus watches his father's face, seeing the subtle calculations happening behind his composed expression. Is Ms. Miller currently detained? Elijah finally asks. Yes, sir. She and her son are in a separate security office. She's been quite vocal about her connections and threatening legal action against the airline. Elijah nods thoughtfully. I'd like to speak with her. The request clearly surprises the security team. Grayson exchanges glances with his colleagues. Mr. Solomon, that's highly unusual in these circumstances. Nevertheless, Elijah says with quiet authority, I'd like 5 minutes with Ms. Miller alone. Sir, for security reasons. With all due respect, Elijah interrupts, if I felt genuinely threatened, I wouldn't request this conversation. I believe there's an opportunity here that extends beyond simple punitive measures. After brief consultation, the security team reluctantly agrees, though they insist on monitoring through the room's observation window. Before leaving to arrange this unusual meeting, Grayson turns to Marcus. Young man, perhaps you'd prefer to wait in our VIP lounge. We have video games, snacks. My son stays with me, Elijah states firmly. This situation involves him too, and there's value in his observing how it's resolved. Marcus sits straighter at this vote of confidence, though uncertainty flickers in his eyes. Dad, are you sure? Elijah places a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Remember this morning's lesson about power and when to reveal it? This is part of that lesson. Minutes later, Karen Miller is escorted into the room, her earlier polish significantly diminished. Her makeup has smudged, slightly blonde hair, lost its perfect styling. She halts upon seeing the Solomons, clearly expecting security officers, not her targets. Please sit down, Miss Miller. Elijah gestures to the chair across from them. Karen hesitates, then complies, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. Mr. Solomon, I can explain. Elijah raises a hand, silencing her. I've seen the messages, Miss Miller. They speak for themselves. Color floods her face. Embarrassment, anger, fear cycling visibly. Those were private communications taken out of context. This entire situation is a gross overreaction. Is it? Elijah asks calmly. You described using my 8-year-old son as leverage for financial gain. You referred to cornering me. You explicitly discussed strategies to coerce a business meeting. Karen's gaze flickers to Marcus, then away quickly. That's not I would never. She stops, recalibrates. Mr. Solomon, I'm a mother myself. I would never harm a child. Business language can sound harsh out of context, but surely you understand the drive to create opportunities. I understand opportunity very well, Elijah replies evenly. I built my career identifying it where others saw nothing of value. But there's a fundamental difference between creating opportunity and exploiting others. Karen's posture shifts subtly, a new calculation visible in her eyes. The authorities are overreacting. My husband's firm has significant influence in the financial sector. This incident could become unnecessarily complicated for everyone involved. The implied threat, however weak, hangs in the air. Marcus watches his father's reaction, learning even now how power moves and countermoves function in real time. Elijah leans forward slightly. Ms. Miller, let me be clear about your situation. You're currently facing potential federal charges for statements that constituted interference with a flight crew. If I choose to pursue harassment charges, your legal position becomes significantly more precarious. Fear replaces calculation in Kenna's expression. Mr. Solomon, please. My son is waiting outside. He's confused, frightened. I made a mistake, a terrible error in judgment. Yes, Elijah agrees. You did. Beginning when you took my son's seat, despite clear evidence, it wasn't yours. Continuing when you attempted to use our chance encounter for financial gain. Culminating when you referenced using my child as leverage. Karen's shoulders slump in defeat. What do you want from me? A teachable moment? Elijah replies, surprising her. He turns slightly toward Marcus. My son is learning about power, how it's acquired, wielded, and most importantly, when it should be restrained. Today provides a perfect case study. He returns his attention to Karen. I have no interest in pressing charges against you, Miss Miller. Hope flares in her eyes, quickly tempered by suspicion. Why not? Because punishment without understanding changes nothing because your son is waiting outside. Much like mine was waiting in that airplane aisle. Elijah's voice remains measured, but intensity underlies his words. And because I recognize the desperation behind your actions, even if I condemn your methods. Karen blinks rapidly, unexpected tears threatening her composed facade. However, Elijah continues, there will be conditions to my declining to press charges. First, you will write a formal apology addressing your behavior toward my son on the aircraft, taking his seat, dismissing his legitimate claim to it. Karen nods quickly. Of course, absolutely. Second, you will make a significant donation to the Solomon Foundation's educational initiative, supporting underrepresented youth in technology fields. The amount should reflect the seriousness with which you take this matter. Another nod, more hesitant this time. Finally, Elijah concludes, "You will use this experience to reflect on the assumptions that led you here. Assumptions about who belongs in first class, about whose space can be claimed, about what methods are acceptable in pursuit of advantage." Karen sits in stunned silence. This outcome clearly different from anything she anticipated. "I don't understand," she finally says. "You have every reason to pursue this legally. Why offer another path?" Elijah glances at Marcus, then back to Karen. "Because true power lies not in what you can take from others, but in what you can build together. My son is learning this. Perhaps today, your son can begin learning it too." For the first time, Karen really looks at Marcus not as an obstacle or leverage, but as a child not so different from her own. "I'm sorry," she says, addressing him directly. "Truly, what I did was wrong." Marcus meets her gaze steadily. "My dad says everyone deserves a second chance to get it right." A knock at the door signals the end of their allotted time. As security officers enter to escort Karen out, Elijah adds one final thought. "Ms. Miller, about that meeting your husband wanted, have his office contact mine properly. Innovation requires diverse perspectives, and I'm always open to worthwhile partnerships." The shock on Karen's face is genuine. "After everything, you'd still consider working with us?" "Not despite everything," Elijah corrects. "Because of it, you've now seen the consequences of taking shortcuts. That awareness makes future interactions more likely to proceed on appropriate terms." As Karen is led away, Marcus turns to his father with wide eyes. "You're really going to meet with her husband?" "Perhaps," Elijah replies. "Everyone makes mistakes, son. The question is whether they learn from them." The airline representative returns clearly relieved by the peaceful resolution. "Mr. Solomon, we've arranged for a private aircraft to take you and your son to San Francisco immediately. Again, our deepest apologies for this disruption." "Thank you, but that won't be necessary," Elijah responds. "We'll continue on the original flight with the other passengers." "Sir," the representative appears confused. "We can have you in San Francisco within 3 hours on a private jet. I appreciate the offer, but my son and I began this journey alongside those passengers. We'll complete it with them." Elijah stands gathering his belongings. "Now, if you'll excuse us, I believe we have a flight to catch." As they walk through the terminal toward gate B14, Marcus processes the morning's extraordinary events. "Dad, why didn't you take the private plane? We could have been in San Francisco before dinner." Elijah slows his pace, ensuring their conversation remains private despite the busy terminal. 2 reasons. First, privilege that separates rather than connects ultimately diminishes everyone. Those passengers experience disruption because of our presence on that flight. Abandoning them to faster transport sends the wrong message about responsibility. And the second reason Marcus prompts, "You," Elijah says simply, "till you've seen how quickly assumptions are made based on appearance, how opportunity and threat can emerge from unexpected quarters, how power can be wielded as a weapon or a tool for growth. These lessons continue on that flight among those people who have just witnessed a situation they likely don't fully understand." They approach gate B14, where passengers from Flight 1372 wait for updates. Conversations pause as the Solomons arrive, eyes following their progress. The atmosphere carries a mixture of curiosity, respect, and the lingering tension of the morning's events. "Mr. Solomon," Diane approaches, professional composure back in place. "We're preparing to board in approximately 20 minutes. We've upgraded several passengers to first class to accommodate a crew flying to San Francisco. Your seats remain as assigned." "Thank you, Diane," Elijah responds warmly. As they find seats in the waiting area, Marcus observes the other passengers more carefully now. The businessman who pretended not to notice when Marcus stood in the aisle, now watching them with uncertain respect. The elderly couple whispering and glancing their way. The young mother Marcus had helped in the terminal recognition dawning as she connects him to the incident on the plane. "They see us differently now," Marcus observes quietly. "They do," Elijah agrees. "But the real question is, do you see them differently? Do you see yourself differently?" Marcus considers this thoughtfully. "I see connections I didn't notice before. How one person's actions affect everyone. How Miss Miller's messages caused an entire plane to land. Systems are interconnected. Elijah nods approvingly, a lesson many adults never fully grasp. And I think I understand better about being seen and unseen. Marcus continues, it's not just about whether people notice you, it's about what they see when they do. Elijah's expression fills with paternal pride. Exactly right. Control over how you're perceived as its own form of power, sometimes more valuable than any wealth or title. The gate agent announces boarding will begin shortly. Around them, passengers gather belongings, prepared to continue their interrupted journey. The Solomon's day has been irrevocably altered, their schedule disrupted. Yet something valuable has been gained in exchange. Dad, Marcus asks as they prepare aboard, do you think Miss Miller will really change how she sees things? Elijah considers this, his expression thoughtful. People can surprise you, Marcus, sometimes in disappointing ways, sometimes in inspiring ones. The opportunity for growth exists either way. Like potential others might miss, Marcus quotes his father's earlier wisdom. Exactly like that, Elijah smiles. Now let's continue our journey. San Francisco awaits, and we have work to do. As they board the aircraft once more, the atmosphere has transformed. The same physical space now carries new awareness, new relationships, new possibilities. For Marcus Solomon, 8 years old and heir to a technological empire, the most valuable lesson of the day has nothing to do with wealth or status, but with something far more fundamental. The power of perception, the strength found in dignity, and the transformative potential of choosing precisely when and how to be seen. The aircraft climbs once more into clear skies, carrying its passengers westward, each forever changed by the morning's unexpected diversion, though none more profoundly than a young boy who entered the day questioning his place in the world and continues it with newfound understanding of the power he already possesses. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to our channel and comment where you're watching from. Now back to our journey. The remainder of the flight to San Francisco passes without incident. Though the atmosphere among the passengers has subtly shifted, conversations occasionally pause as eyes drift toward row 2, where Elijah works steadily on his tablet, while Marcus alternates between sketching app designs and gazing out the window at the landscape passing below. The empty seats in row 4 serve as a silent reminder of the morning's drama. Midway through the flight, Diane approaches with a pot of fresh coffee. More coffee, Mr. Solomon. Thank you, Diane, Elijah responds, offering his cup. As she pours, he adds quietly, I appreciate your professionalism throughout today's situation. Diane's carefully neutral expression warms slightly. Just doing my job, sir. Though I must admit, in 15 years of flying, I've never experienced anything quite like it. Nor have most of the passengers, I imagine, Elijah observes, glancing around the cabin. No, sir, Diane agrees. It's created quite the atmosphere. She hesitates, then adds, several passengers have asked about what happened. Airline policy prohibits us from discussing security matters. Of course, Elijah nods, understanding. After Diane moves on, Marcus leans closer to his father. Everyone's curious, he whispers. People naturally seek narratives to explain disruptions, Elijah replies. In the absence of facts, they'll create their own. What do you think they're saying about what happened? Elijah considers this. Some will focus on Ms. Miller's removal, speculating about what she did. Others might wonder about our role in the situation. The most perceptive will be connecting various observations, her taking your seat, our conversation with the captain, the security response. Does it matter what they think? Marcus asks. It matters what you think, Elijah responds. Public perception is like weather, constantly changing and largely beyond your control. Your self-perception is the climate you live in every day. As the flight continues, Marcus notices passengers occasionally approaching their row under various pretexts, retrieving items from overhead bins, visiting the lavatory, stretching legs, each movement providing an opportunity for curious glances, or in some cases, direct interaction. A middle-aged man in a business suit pauses beside their row. Mr. Solomon, Jim Hargrove, Pinnacle Investments. I just wanted to say I admire your work with educational technology. My firm follows your innovations closely. Elijah offers a polite nod. Thank you, Mr. Hargrove. I couldn't help noticing the situation earlier, Hargrove continues, lowering his voice. Remarkable how you handled it, very measured. Some situations require direct intervention, Elijah responds neutrally. Others benefit from a more considered approach. Harov nods eagerly. Absolutely. Well, safe travels to you both. He retreats to his seat, immediately whispering to his seatmate. He was fishing for information, Marcus observes once Harov is out of earshot. Indeed, Elijah confirms with a slight smile. Information is currency in certain circles. Mr. Harov hoped to acquire some he could spend elsewhere. The pattern repeats with subtle variations. A woman mentioning a charitable connection to the Solomon Foundation. Another businessman referencing a conference where Elijah had spoken. A retiree simply expressing admiration for Elijah's public philanthropy. Each interaction brief, each carrying undercurrents of curiosity about the morning's events. Marcus watches these approaches with growing understanding of social dynamics he'd previously observed only peripherally. The power of his father's name, the value of proximity to influence, the currency of inside knowledge, all playing out in the microcosm of the aircraft cabin. During a quiet moment, Marcus returns to his app design, adding new features based on the day's observations. Elijah notices the changes on his screen. You've added something new, he comments, studying the interface. Marcus nods. A safety alert system. If a kid feels uncomfortable or excluded during reading time, they can send a private message to the teacher. Elijah's expression softens with pride, taking your experiences and transforming them into solutions for others. That's exactly right, Marcus. I was thinking about how it felt standing in the aisle, Marcus explains. If Ms. Miller hadn't taken my seat, if the flight attendant had been more certain if other passengers had spoken up, things might have been different. Systems require multiple failure points before harm occurs, Elijah agrees, and multiple intervention points to prevent it. Their conversation is interrupted by the captain's announcement of their initial descent into San Francisco. Outside the window, California sunshine illuminates the landscape below, a stark contrast to the Atlanta morning that now seems days rather than hours past. As the aircraft begins its approach, Elijah receives another text from Ayana. Engineering team has identified the prototype issue. Solutions in progress, but deadline tight. Media already gathering at tomorrow's demonstration. Governor confirmed attendance. The stakes of their San Francisco meeting suddenly returned to focus after the day's distractions. Marcus, reading the message over his father's shoulder, feels the weight of expectations settling once more. Will they fix it in time? He asks. If not, we adapt, Elijah responds calmly. One quality that separates successful people from the rest is how they respond when plans collapse. Like today, Marcus observes. Our plan was a quiet trip to San Francisco. Elijah smiles. And instead, we got a masterclass in human behavior, power dynamics, and crisis management. I'd call that an educational upgrade. The aircraft touches down at San Francisco International Airport with a gentle bump, taxiing toward the terminal under clear California skies. As passengers prepare for deplaning, Deanne approaches the Solomons once more. Mr. Solomon, Captain Thornton asked me to convey his apologies again for the disruption to your journey and to thank you for your understanding of the security protocols. Please tell the captain his handling of the situation was exemplary, Elijah responds. Sometimes the measure of leadership is found in how unexpected challenges are addressed. As the seatbelt sign dims and passengers begin standing, gathering belongings from overhead compartments, Elijah turns to Marcus. Ready for the next phase of our journey? Marcus nods, organizing his backpack with the same meticulous care he'd shown that morning, though he himself has changed in ways not immediately visible. The boy who boarded in Atlanta had been cautious, observant, but hesitant. The boy preparing to disembark in San Francisco carries himself with subtly greater confidence. His observations now informed by deeper understanding. They wait for the initial rush of deplaning to subside before standing. As they move toward the exit, several passengers nod respectfully or offer small smiles, acknowledgement of something significant shared, even if not fully understood. In the jet bridge, a Plank Lodge security officer waits discreetly. Mr. Solomon, I'm Agent Rivera with Airport Security. We've arranged an escort to help you avoid any media attention. Elijah raises an eyebrow. Media? Yes, sir. Apparently, word of this morning's incident has circulated. Several outlets have reporters stationed in the terminal. Elijah and Marcus exchange glances of surprise. Their private drama has somehow become public knowledge. Another lesson in modern interconnectedness. How did they learn about it? Elijah asks as they follow Agent Rivera through a service corridor, bypassing the main terminal. Social media, sir. Several passengers posted about the diversion and security response. Once your name was mentioned, interest escalated quickly as they navigate the back channels of the airport. Marcus absorbs this final lesson of their journey. How private moments in a connected world rarely remain private. How stories take on lives of their own once released into the public consciousness. They emerge near the baggage claim area where Elijah's San Francisco team waits. Two security personnel and a driver standing beside a private car with tinted windows. Beyond them, through glass doors, media representatives with cameras and microphones hover expectantly. Your team advised us of your preference to avoid media engagement, Agent Rivera explains. We've coordinated a quiet exit through the service area. Thank you, Elijah responds, then turns to Marcus. Almost there. As they approach the waiting team, Marcus looks back toward the terminal they've just navigated, the endpoint of a journey that became something entirely unexpected. A simple flight transformed into a complex lesson about visibility and invisibility, about power used and power restrained, about a world that alternately overlooks and scrutinizes, depending on who it perceives you to be. Dad, Marcus asks as they reach the waiting car. What happens now? With the prototype demonstration with Ms. Miller with everything. Elijah places a hand on his son's shoulder. Now we continue forward. The prototype team works through the night if necessary. Ms. Miller either learns from today or doesn't. That's her journey now. And you take everything you've observed and let it shape your understanding of the world and your place in it. As they slide into the waiting car, leaving the airport and its lingering drama behind, Marcus gazes out at San Francisco's iconic skyline emerging in the distance. The city represents the next phase of their journey. Business meetings, the prototype demonstration, a return to the visible work of the Solomon Empire. But something fundamental has shifted in the space between departure and arrival. An 8-year-old boy boarded a plane in Atlanta, questioning his place in the world. That same boy arrives in San Francisco with deeper understanding of the power he already possesses. Not just the power of his family name or wealth, but the power of observation, of patience, of choosing precisely when and how to be seen. As the car merges into San Francisco traffic, Elijah receives another text from Ayanna. Engineering team breakthrough, prototype stabilizing, media interest in Memphis incident growing. Several interview requests. Looks like our quiet arrival is no longer possible, Elijah comments, showing Marcus the message. Marcus considers this. Does that change our plans? It changes how we approach them, Elijah replies. When visibility is thrust upon you, the question becomes how to direct it toward what matters. The education initiative, Marcus suggests, instead of talking about what happened on the plane, Elijah smiles with approval. Exactly. Transform a distraction into opportunity. The car turns onto Market Street, San Francisco's energy pulsing around them. Tomorrow brings the prototype demonstration, meetings with potential partners, the next stage of the Solomon mission to transform educational access. But today has already delivered its own profound education. Lessons no classroom could provide. Insights no textbook could capture. Dad, Marcus says, as the Solomon Tower San Francisco comes into view, its sleek architecture echoing its Atlantic counterpart. Thank you for letting me come with you today. Thank you for being observant enough to learn from it, Elijah responds. Most people go through life seeing only what they expect to see. The ones who change the world are those who notice what others miss. The car pulls into the private entrance of the building, where a team waits to escort them to the executive floors. As Marcus steps from the car backpack, secure on his shoulders, he carries more than the physical items packed that morning in Atlanta. He carries new understanding, new perspective, new awareness of the complex interplay of perception and reality that shapes human interaction. 8 years old, heir to a technological empire, yet his most valuable inheritance may be this: the wisdom to know when to be seen and when to observe, when to exercise power and when to withhold it, when to stand firm and when to offer second chances. As they enter the building, leaving behind the drama of Flight 1372, Marcus Solomon walks taller than he did that morning. Not because the world now sees him more clearly, but because he now sees himself and the world around him with greater clarity. In that awareness lies a power more enduring than any seat assignment, more transformative than any wealth, more profound than any momentary victory or defeat. The journey continues as all journeys do, but the traveler has been forever changed by the path already traveled. If you've enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel and comment with your thoughts. What would you have done in this situation? We'd love to hear from you.